have some friend pickup lines that if I was alone at a restaurant and I wanted to speak to the two girls next to me or the couple to my right, I would maybe just even look over and be like, "Ooh, what did you get? What did you order?" And
Welcome back to 10 Hours from Home. This is Katie, your host. I never say that, but here we are this week. This is what we're doing, I guess. I am gearing up to head back to Morocco, which is actually first I'm going back to France. For some reason, my eyeball is freaking out. And I wasn't able to travel for a little bit, so it was nice because I had to extend my trip to Nashville, which was a pleasant surprise. But now it's time to go back and figure out what the hell is going on with my eye and get back to life. All the good things that are to come with Atelier Kate, which I'm really excited about because that's why I'm heading back to Morocco to go see my artisans, and we're creating a new collection. So I'm super excited about that and working with this collective for the first time, this co-op. It's all women run and they're leaders in their areas and in their craft, and so I'm super excited about all of it and ready to get back on the ground, and I'm ready to get going and get a new collection out. I'm super excited. That is coming up and it's on its way, which is very exciting, and I'm also just excited to get back in the swing of things. It's been really nice to have this extra time here with my mom and all that good stuff, but I'm ready to get back on the road and get going and keep creating. Like, that's the biggest thing I'm looking forward to, is like seeing the fruits of my labor come to life once again and working with people and collaborating and doing all that fun stuff. So, and I'm going to Morocco for Ramadan. So that's always fun because I like to fast for Ramadan. It's much easier to do it in a country that is also participating because you don't have to deal with, food and other people eating around you. Also, I just like the collective consciousness of it. Everybody's on the same page, everybody's doing it, maybe not for the same reason, but I like it as like a spiritual reset, and to be in that space where everybody is participating, even if it's just out of religious duty. It's just the energetic feel of it is different, and maybe it's just like we're all in this together deal. The hardest thing for me, everyone always asks though, is like, what's the hardest thing for you when you're fasting? And for me, it's not the food, it's the water. Because I get angry. Like, how people get hangry? I get whatever the hangry equivalent of thirsty is. Because if I'm not well hydrated, I just want to slit someone's throat. So yeah, so I just make sure I get up for Fajr and I literally drink 2 liters of water before I start the day. Well, go to bed and then start the day. That's the hardest part for me, is the drinking. And then at the end of Ramadan, my Moroccan mom makes these, I don't even know how to describe them, except for they're kind of like a fried phyllo dough, but not really, but kind of sorta, and they're sweet, but just very lightly sweet. They're so good, and I dream about them all the time. And I could probably eat like 700 pounds of them in one sitting because they're so good, and I forget the name of them all the time. I know it starts with an R, but I can't remember the name. Rayef, something like that. Anyway, don't judge my Darija, it's really bad. But yeah, so I'm really excited to eat and not eat, and also just kind of in need of this spiritual reset. Last year I didn't fast for Ramadan because I was going through a lot, and I tried and I succeeded for a while and then was just so exhausted that I wasn't in the headspace to do it. So this year I'm excited to get back on track and have that spiritual reset and reconnect to my higher power and all of that good stuff, because even though I'm not Muslim, I appreciate the fact that this is just kind of like a month reminder of, like why we're all here. So I take advantage of it. And I'm excited to do that in Morocco. So yeah. All right. Well, today I'm super excited because I have a guest who has kind of lived all over the place, and she has had a very different experience than me because she has been a backpacker and a digital nomad, and I have never been either of those things, which kind of shocks some people. I've never had that experience of like going backpacking and all this. I've stayed in one hostel my entire existence, so it was a really bad 20-year-old going around Europe, but I've only ever stayed in one hostel. So this is her experience, and I learned so much from her. And she talks about everything from how to create your digital nomad life to how to connect to other people and find your people. And even she talks about like a friend pickup line. So it's just a really great interview full of like so much information and so much good stuff. And her business partner are just two really amazing women, and I'm excited for you to get to know Kylie. So let's get into it. So today I'm super excited because I have Kylie with me, who has lived across Asia, Central and South America nomadically for the last 7 years as a backpacker. And then she was a digital nomad after that and a yoga teacher. Today she's the founder of this incredible collective, this movement really, called the Ellement Collective. It's an interactive mobile app that empowers young women with life skills and community support while navigating their teen years and beyond, which I totally wish I had when I was a teen. She and her co-founder, Mary, have been nothing but two of the most amazing women that I've ever encountered in my life. They're just so cool, and I'm so excited to share Kylie's story with you guys today. All right. Hi,
Oh,
Kylie.
hi. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you again. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for doing this again. I'm so sorry. I'm
Yeah.
recording in two places this time. So I have
Okay.
like a screen grabber and I have the Zoom because I don't know what
Uh-huh.
happened I opened the file and it was completely like, just like
Oh
HTML.
man.
And I was like,
Yeah.
no, we had such a good interview.
Mm. Well, hopefully it'll be a good again. I honestly don't remember what I said, some of it, but we'll just see.
That's okay. No, I mean, I appreciate it. And I am still I'm glad that it gives us another excuse to talk to each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I just want to jump into it and kind of talk about your background and like your backpacking specifically, because I have never done backpacking and I feel like it's such a cool and adventurous and brave kind of way to go, especially as a female. Because I think you find people, I think when men backpack, it's such a different reaction to when women backpack. So I would love to hear all of your background and all of kind of that journey to start off, and then we'll go from there.
I actually first went out of the country when I was 20, and turned 21 abroad. I was studying in New Zealand, and that's actually where I met Mary Allard, my co-founder of my new business that we're launching. And it was the first time that I had stepped out, into foreign territory. And that was when I knew that I had to see more of the world and that I would set my own goals and vision to do that. So that led me to really begin to save money and have a long list of places that I wanted to get to, and bought a one-way ticket to Indonesia. And that was kind of the beginning of my solo entrepreneur backpacking experience. So my journey in Indonesia was the first time I had discovered backpacking and was traveling by myself. And that's where I really learned that backpacking is such a spontaneous adventure, and really set intentions to try to see the world on the budget that I was working on. As I would work hard in the States, save money, and then leave and be able to live on, sometimes my budget was $15 to $20 a day. And with that being said, I have had bed bugs a few times. I was definitely roughing it and staying in hostels. But it was such an incredible experience as I was alone, because I was never really alone. I was always meeting other solo travelers, and I never really had an itinerary. So that really allowed me to be free to explore and not have a deadline on something, only really a budget to make it last to get there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Like, I can't even, I mean, am, I've stayed in a hostel, I think twice. So, and I met one of my best friends in a hostel. So I probably should have like taken up the backpacking side of things, like, when I was younger and still doing all that and moving around like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, how do you find your community in kind of like this transient space that you're living nomadically, even as a digital nomad? Like, how did you start those conversations? How did you kind of like build your community through that?
I would say music and yoga were two ways that I was able to tap into the communities of like minded people that I wanted to surround myself with. And it's kind of cheesy that quote, your vibe attracts your tribe. But
Mhm.
when I was out there backpacking, that's really how it kind of was a foundation of how I met amazing people. I travel with a ukulele. That's sort of my thing. And I would be singing songs in the common area, and other musicians would gather, other people that were artists or, knew the songs. So already it kind of created this environment of what I wanted to be surrounded in. And I also am a big yogi and love to practice wherever I go. So I was finding studios or offering yoga in hostels so that I could also meet people and be around other people that were interested in their yoga practice and mindfulness. So it was sort of my way of doing that. And I also I have some friend pickup lines that if I was alone at a restaurant and I wanted to speak to the two girls next to me or the couple to my right, I would maybe just even look over and be like, "Ooh, what did you get? What did you order?" And just some way of introducing myself and then being bold. I'm
Mhm.
Kylie. I'm here for another week. How long have you been here? Whatever. And just start conversation there to, just put yourself out there and engage with the other travelers that are all, there as well to explore and meet other travelers and experience.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome. That's such a nice thing, nice way of putting it, like a friend pickup line. Like I love that. So it's total it you don't even think about things like that. I don't. And I'm super introverted. Like I'm not somebody who I'm extroverted in a certain space, but like in terms of like in a big party or gatherings or something like that, like I wouldn't think to just walk up to somebody and it makes me uncomfortable, but saying like, "Oh, what did you get?" Like that's so
Food is something
fluid
that
and easy.
everyone is able to connect and talk about. So I
Yeah.
found that that's a nice way to start and spark conversation. Because
Yeah.
everyone loves food, especially in a foreign country when you're like, "Ooh, I've never seen that dish. Is that the cow soy?"
Yeah.
And kind of go from there, break the ice with a little food talk.
Absolutely. And you're so right. Everybody does love food. That's like one of my that's I think it's my love language actually. Like if anybody ever asks me about my travels, I always start with the food. Like people ask me about
Mhm.
Morocco, I'm like, you have to go. They have the best food.
And
So,
that's actually one of my favorite things to do when I arrive somewhere new is find the local markets, find where the locals get their food, and just walking around the markets, you learn so much. I've found that a lot of countries that I've been to, for example, Myanmar, I would just walk up to some food stands and stare because I didn't know what it was. I would just look at the food they were making, watch the process. And most of the time, the nice ladies would pass me some for free and I would try to offer money and they would just want me to try.
mm-hmm.
And it'd be, I would learn so much about the culture just from what their food system is. And it's also just super, exciting to see how things are labeled, even if you go to a bigger grocery store, if a country has something like that too. So from market to their type of grocery store, it's really eye opening.
Yeah, I mean it's so true and it definitely I feel like um it's such a way like you said like food is the way that you connect I think in any culture and I mean even here like in the US I think that like
brunch. Like that's how you connect with everyone is through brunch here. And so, I think food
Exactly.
is such an easy way and so cool. That's awesome. I would love to go to a market in Miramar and just stare at my options.
Yeah.
So I do want to kind of actually jump back a little bit and ask you, what was the first, because you mentioned like you had gone abroad to your first country at 20. What was that? And that was kind of like what caught your attention and got you kind of hooked on the travel. What country was that?
I was first in New Zealand, which wasn't so different from living in the States, but we went on a spring break trip to Thailand. And I actually went with Mary, my current co-founder and amazing best friend sister. And that was the first time that I had set foot in Asia. My first time to Thailand was when I was 20, and that was really the most eye-opening, where I realized that there was so much more out there that I wanted to see and experience. And I ended up returning years later after I had saved more money working in the States and set a goal to be abroad for a while. And it wasn't until I made it to Koh Tao that I somehow found myself teaching yoga as I would teach other people at the hostel I was staying at. And later I ended up teaching at a studio on the island and ended up running it for a while. The woman trusted me a bit to do that. And I realized, oh, wow, I can be abroad and make some money, which was enough to really sustain and live there as well. So that was even more eye-opening because I realized I could sustain my travels even longer if I was working while I was abroad. So when I was backpacking, I was always either volunteering, doing trades at hostels to extend my stay, and teaching a lot of yoga. That's really where that journey began for me, to be offering the practice of yoga. And at that point, I hadn't even been certified. I was just teaching from what I knew. And I later then went to India to continue my certificate and study for a long period of time, to then be able to offer that as a facilitator and do more classes and trainings around the world.
That's so amazing. That's so cool to like be able to travel and do what you love and make money from it and be able to sustain kind of this nomadic life. That's so amazing. Like it's just, I think that's so cool and very aspirational.
There's such a huge digital nomad community out there as well, too. So when I was in my younger 20s, I saw those communities, saw some new co-working spaces, which back then was so new and hip. And now it's really become into this whole community that's abroad of people being able to work nomadically. I think that is a huge shift from the pandemic as well. Offices being closed and people being able to work remote. And at the time, I had so many people reaching out to me that were either following me on Instagram and my journey and saying, how are you doing this? How are you making this happen? And my only advice was just do it. And, save up your money and work hard, save up your money, and then you can make this happen for yourself and see what opportunities are out there if you want to experience being abroad for a longer period of time. So it took a lot of work in the beginning to be able to have some funds to extend my stay overseas.
Yeah. But I guess I'm guessing at least once you put those things in place, did you find it easier to kind of replicate it in the next place that you went, or was it kind of like starting all over again?
Yeah, it depended where, because I found so many similarities in smaller towns where I would offer yoga classes and then take a big group of the students out to dinner and meet the restaurant owner and just make connections while you were living abroad. It seemed like it was always growing upon each experience of how to stay in one place for a longer period of time, which is definitely my preferred way of travel, not always so available. But when you can stay in a place longer than 2 weeks, you really, really get to know the culture and the people, which to me was one of the most impactful parts of living in some of these amazing places, was seeing similar faces every day and recognizing the same man selling the papaya at the market that was so excited to see me every morning. And to be able to support these, for me, I was in mostly developing countries, support these countries with tourism, which is how a lot of them are currently thriving, off of the tourism and off of the people that are bringing in travel.
Yeah.
Tourism.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I just kind of to talk about this moving and, staying in one place for a little bit longer. Is it hard to kind of, we've talked about creating that community, but like it also comes with, and I remember this as like a student living abroad, I remember there's like this people coming and going very often. So how did you kind of maintain those relationships that you built? And then like, how did you feel about kind of like this people coming and going pretty often and not having that kind of stable friend base?
It is very transient environment with backpackers coming and going. And I think that's something that becomes a part of that environment. Mm-hmm. And something that I did was meet people that were also staying in that place for a longer period of time, a bit more committed to grounding at that time. And I am so grateful for social media. Like Facebook at the time was really the way that I would stay connected to these travelers. And there were moments where I would just send out a mass message and say, hey, it's my birthday. Meet me in this city if you're still on this island or in this country. And then people would show up. And it was so cool because we would all go our separate ways, yet stay quite connected. I think a part of that gypsy transient nature kind of makes you have thicker skin almost, and makes you really want to stay present with the people that you're currently with in the moment, because it could be goodbye tomorrow, it could be see you later. So it's really it could be a way to make times even more special if you're really like, oh no, she's going to leave in 3 days. Let's just make the best of it for now. And then maybe you'll see each other in a different country, which is super rad.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for those bonds that I still am in touch with so many people that I met abroad.
Yeah. That's awesome. And it really, I feel like it's too, again, I've never backpacked, but from my experience is just like going to school abroad and then living abroad, and those people who didn't stay after living abroad, after going to school abroad, it's kind of like this weird little club that you're a member of, and that like you have like little mini reunions, because people do tend to like come back and revisit, and you get a chance to reconnect face to face. So there's already a bond, there's already an alignment in that friendship, and there's this curiousness of anyone that is abroad and wanting to experience other cultures. So there's just an underlying way of connecting and getting along with other people that are also seeking that exploration. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love it. So you spent a lot of your time in Asia and in South and Central America. Where would you say, like, what countries would you say were your most impactful? Like, what are the countries that you took the most lessons from, or that really shaped you into who you are now?
India, for sure. India. It's one of my favorite places, and I can't wait to return one day. India taught me so many lessons that I still carry with me today. It can be a challenging place to travel as a solo female, and it can also be a really empowering place to travel. It taught me so much of my own resiliency when things don't go my way. If I lost something, really how to go with the flow and not against the current, and taught me so much about how to surrender to that flow, and how sometimes the plans that I had don't go to plan, and the countless number of canceled flights and missed trains. And it was such an experience for me that really was pivotal in my growth as a person, and also as a yoga teacher and space holder. And the people there, I had so many deep connections with so many amazing teachers that I was studying with at the time, and so many moments where, you don't speak the same language, but we can all look at each other and smile and drop into this deep human connection, which happened so many times in different countries that are just moments that I'll never forget. Where, okay, we don't speak the same language. We are so different in every way, and every way of how we were raised, everything. Yet we can smile and instantly connect.
Yeah. I feel that's, so true. I have my little Moroccan family in Morocco, and we do speak the same language, although I speak it very poorly, in French, not in Arabic. I'm awful in Arabic. I can just say the things that are cute to kind of get me by, but we come from two very different cultures, and yet there's this underlying humanity that just exists. And when your souls connect, I feel like your souls connect, and it doesn't matter what language you speak, or what religion you were raised in, or any of it. It's just when there's that connection, there's that connection.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful thing. And to be able to share and learn about their place and their home and their culture and way of life is so eye-opening, of just seeing where I've grown up and how blessed I am to have experienced the childhood and the lifestyle that I've experienced my whole life, and then to witness extreme differences is really eye-opening, and brings so much gratitude. And I spent some time in Costa Rica. I was actually happily stuck there during the pandemic. I was there facilitating a yoga teacher training when the world shut down in February or March 2020. And I ended up staying because they closed down the airports. And I really got to know the motto Pura Vida in a very different way, which means simple life, pure life. And seeing how the people in this beautiful little town, Puerto Viejo on the Caribbean side, they live so simply, and they don't need material things, and that maybe we think that we can't live without. And it was just an incredible power of perspective that I got to witness during a very scary time. They didn't have any tourism. There were no people coming in. A lot of the businesses were beginning to struggle and see, the direct impact that tourism had on this very touristy village. So it just made me really grateful that I was able to support that, and support restaurants, support the markets, and be a expat that was wanting to help the community in a time where they weren't able to allocate resources and stuff while they weren't getting new tourists coming in.
Yeah, I can imagine how difficult, especially for places like Costa Rica, and Morocco too heavily depends on tourism. I saw the definite impact that it made on the economy, even the artisans. When people don't have access, it was definitely heartbreaking. So to be able to support them like that and be in the country and kind of in it with everyone, I'm sure it was a different feeling than kind of what was happening in the US or in France or in those areas. So awesome. That's so cool. I'm just how was your time in Central and South America? What brought you there, and what kind of kept you there, if that makes sense?
I started facilitating yoga teacher trainings around 5 years ago and working for one school, specifically the Kula Collective. And they have quite a home base in Lake Atitlan, Guatemala, which is 4 hours outside of Guatemala City in Antigua. So there's quite a community that I have there. And it's all expats that have, created a life there, which is really beautiful, and that offer yoga teacher training. So I ended up going there often for work. And one of my dearest friends from college also runs the really beautiful retreat center, Casa Curativa. So I began to, see them grow this from the ground up, and have loved to return to this little community that feels like a coming home, which is really beautiful. So I often return for work, for trainings, and then elongate my stay, which is really nice. It's on a big, beautiful lake and volcanoes surrounding, and really special place.
Wow. I've been to Costa Rica. I know the beauty of it, but I've only ever been as a tourist. My grandma took us all for her 70th birthday. And so to experience it like that, I can't even imagine, because just the small taste I got as a tourist, got me hooked for sure. So that's so cool. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a really special place. And I think something with traveling and backpacking is creating community where you go and creating connection, which just makes you learn about more places too. I've noticed that my travel list just gets longer and longer now that I've met more travelers, and my eyes just keep on opening even more. So I'm really grateful for to be setting goals of where I want to go next and how to continue this adventure.
Yeah, do you ever get an itch to move? Because I notice for me, I get to the 2-3 month mark, and I'm like, oh, I gotta see something new. I gotta be in a new place. I gotta get to moving. So do you have that in you too, or is it just about kind of as it comes?
Yeah, definitely. I realized that when I planned things back when I was in this backpacking zone, that the plans would always change, or I wouldn't follow through with them, and I'd want to change my flight anyways. So it really depended on where I was and what my intentions were in one place at the time. I recently moved to Colorado 3 years ago, but then left for about 6 to 8 months of the year, leaving for another adventure. So I'm still learning to ground and slow down my traveler side of myself, hoping to, create a community in Colorado and roots here. And I'm not ever going to be done traveling, but definitely traveling in a different way than the backpacker kind of wandering way.
No, I totally understand. I think this year for me, this 2021, I kind of I don't know how to explain it, but I had so many administrative things in France, and my business is there, and then I have some of my business in Morocco. And so I feel but during the pandemic, because my grandma was sick, I left my home. I don't have a home base anymore. So I feel I've just been kind of bouncing around, and it's weird while everybody else is not traveling. I've been traveling but it's all been essential for business, and it hasn't really been a lot of pleasure traveling, but it's just very odd because it's I can start to feel the itch, and I'm I need to get grounded somewhere. I need a home base again. So that I feel centered and, have all my stuff in one place and unpacked and, not living out of suitcases. So,
yeah. And that was so new to me at one point too, after being abroad for the 7 years that I was, to then have more roots and unpack and feel what it means to be a little bit more rooted and settled. Yeah. Which also has so much beauty in that too.
Exactly. I feel now after these I'm striving for that, that rooted feeling, and that, because that's the new goal, right? For me personally. But speaking to that, how do you how do you feel, and what was it like adjusting back to life in the US full time, like in a more full-time way? So you've been living this amazing adventure, and then now you're kind of rooted here. What was it like adjusting back to that?
I often came back and forth throughout the years, and culture shock is a thing. I would always just give myself lots of time and be really patient with myself while I was acclimating back to wherever I was. And there would always be a deep wave of gratitude for, returning back to where I lived, visiting my parents, visiting friends, and always was so intentional about sharing my journey with my network, and sharing in a way that would help me also remember how simple life could be in certain places. And again, it always just comes back to that perspective check. I was once gone a longer period of time, and I remember I came home, I was visiting my parents, and my mom said, "Hey, will you run to Trader Joe's to pick up something?" And so I went there, and she gave me her credit card to use, and the guy said, "Put in the chip." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I had been gone long enough that somehow the whole credit card thing had drastically changed, and I didn't know what the chip was. And at one point he had all of his staff standing there and being like, "She doesn't know what the chip is." And they were like, "Where have you been?" I was like, places where they don't use credit cards or chips like this. Like, this is not, like, we have so much technology and resources. And that was such a moment of, wow, the vast difference of different cultures and types of developing countries versus America, for example. And it just was a big realization of how I can better support and also bring awareness to people here of how blessed we are to have technology, and really not take it for granted, or how much access we have to what we need here.
Yeah. I mean, it's so true. There is so much access. Sometimes it gets to be overwhelming, and it's so different than other parts of the world. And even France and Spain, when I was first living there and I would come back here, I felt kind of like an alien that had landed, even though it's where I grew up and it's what I know. It's just like, I don't know, after spending such an extended amount of time, like, you get used to like having dinner at 11 p.m. and things like that, like where it's just like here it's, or you get used, like you said, like just paying in cash and not having that card, and then things get updated and you're like, oh wait, what's happening?
Yeah.
I totally understand that kind of like, oh wait, what's happening? But yeah. So I wanted to ask you, just in general, like, what have you learned from this time abroad? Like, what are the biggest lessons that you've kind of taken from it? You've kind of spoken about going with the flow and, going with things rather than against them, and just kind of how to make friends. But what's kind of the overall lesson that you've either learned about yourself or learned just from living abroad? Or I'll open it.
Yeah, I think my travel experiences have really influenced my desire to stay curious with always getting to know myself, and why I've began this new app, this new business with Mary, Ellement Collective, for teenage girls and gender expansive youth. So it's sharing tools and resources that I wish I had known sooner. And it's a platform that is really sparked from being in touch with what it means to be in your own element. And I really find that when I'm traveling, I'm in my element. I'm in this bliss state of curiousness and of wanting to express myself and meet people. And living abroad has really opened up a lot of those doors for me to be out of my comfort zone in many ways. And work towards things like, oh, one day I want to be able to work abroad, and that I made that happen for myself in my younger 20s, which was scary at the time. And it's such a lesson of, you know, you have to go for those things and set those intentions and not let the voices of fear or of criticism that definitely speak, don't let them be too loud that you don't do the things that you want to do one day. And maybe that's, you know, I have so many places that I want to go to one day. I haven't really explored much of Europe because I haven't had the funds to. I want to be able to go to, you know, Australia. I haven't been there yet. So I have dreams and goals that that are on the back burner right now, but that having them there is, you know, the first step, and then setting the intentions to make it happen are the next. So I think that traveling has really just opened my eyes up to that potential, and potential for more connection too, which is one of my favorite parts about traveling, is the people and the culture.
Yeah. I mean, that is, I feel like the whole point too of traveling is like that connect, at least for me. I know it's not always for everybody, but for me, it's definitely that connection. And I love meeting other people who have the same kind of ideas. So, sorry. I have noise happening too, apparently now, because there's somebody doing some repairs downstairs.
My dog is barking at me now. He's like, "Don't travel."
Yeah,
he's like, now.
Exactly.
Now
He's like,
I have
I have to go with you. No, and I guess, yeah, speaking to all that too, what kind of struggles have you had in terms of like this transient life? I mean, there's language barriers, there's cultural barriers. Have you found that any of that has been a little bit of a struggle in terms of, you know, connecting or just communicating in general? And how did you kind of overcome those?
I would say it happens frequently, yet it is still so possible to travel in places where you don't speak the language.
Mm-hmm.
I've had so many moments where it just becomes sort of this laughter / frustration of trying to figure things out, and a lightness that comes from it. So I should be way better at Spanish than I am right now for the amount of time I've stayed abroad, but I still try, and I know that they appreciate that, and it's received if I'm even trying to speak Spanish. And I can totally get by, but there is such a benefit of knowing the language. And I never want it to be a deterrent for me to go to somewhere new where it will be a completely foreign language, mm-hmm. especially in more travel circuits where they're ready for English-speaking people to come. They want us there. So they make it accessible and easier to get by. I always voice as a solo female traveler that, you know, be safe everywhere you go. Mm-hmm. I felt like I had eyes at the back of my head at times and just would make decisions based on my safety a lot of the times, to not put myself in situations where I would feel weird later if I found myself in somewhere with only one other person. So it's all about, you know, being smart and being aware and awake of your surroundings. And I really do believe that people are good everywhere. And the amount of times I've been in sticky situations, which I've been in many, and I'm slowly even starting to tell my parents some of them one by one. Oh, and then this happened. And they're like, what? You never told us this. And like, well, there's a reason.
Yeah, I can't tell you in the moment.
But I always was still supported, or someone would be there that would be willing and able to help. And so that's, you know, bringing kindness everywhere you go, and bringing an utmost respect for the new culture you're in. I'm always super intentional and research where I'm going, what type of clothes are appropriate, what things maybe wouldn't be appropriate, especially as a female traveler. I always abide by, if they're not showing their shoulders, I will not show my shoulders and or my knees in certain places, and really respect the culture, and then they respect you back. So that's something I always really like to express when people are traveling somewhere for the first time. Like, do some research, and then ask around when you're there as well, so that you really are, existing with them, not just visiting.
Yeah. And I think that that's such amazing advice, because I can't tell you how many people, like, I'm weirdly protective over Morocco, and I have a lot of friends who've come and done the Instagrams in Marrakesh with, like, inappropriate things hanging out just for Marrakesh, for Morocco, it's just not part of it's more and more part of the culture now, but it's not at its base. If you want to respect the culture where it is, and it's great to be yourself always, but like, meet somebody where they are. And when you're a guest in someone's home, then
exactly. And that's how it is when you're abroad. You're a guest, you're there in their territory, their home. So bringing respect and bringing awareness to be existing with them in a nice way.
And I think that it's so true what you're saying, is that, when you meet someone where they are and with respect, you have such a different experience than if you kind of fight against what's happening where you are. So you have like this, this easy flow and that mutual respect that really makes a difference in your travel experience. So that's awesome. Love it. Love it. And I'm just going to ask you one last question. What would your advice be for anyone looking to backpack or even just travel around to foreign countries or countries that are foreign to them? I know you said just do it, but which is awesome advice. Just go. But do you have anything else that you would say about that experience?
When my parents first asked me for my travel itinerary, I gave them a list of 9 countries, and that was it. And I said, I'm going to these places. And they wanted like a play-by-play, which isn't really how I've traveled and how I prefer traveling. Obviously, it so depends on how much time you have and what budget you have. So I always vote to go with a loose idea of where you want to go. If you have a longer period of time and you can extend it like that. If it is a shorter period of time, then doing research is so beneficial to figure out where you want to see and what you want to do. And then when you get to the place, give yourself space to just go out and explore. And I've realized that when I was super tied down to things, it kind of created this speed of intensity while I'm in a place. And so much about experiencing culture is just maybe sitting at a coffee shop outside and watching the people walk by and really take it all in, and let yourself meet new people and be a bit more spontaneous. So I think my biggest advice would be to stay curious and be curious in the places and open up to the surroundings and be open to new experiences and new people. And so much of our life, we're so tied to plans. So what would it feel like to be in a foreign country and not have many plans? And I think that's the beauty of the backpacking, spontaneous, momentum that these younger kids now, I've seen so many, I guess that's how old I was, in my mid-20s, exploring with just a backpack on their back, and bringing that mentality even in my 30s is something that I really hope to do again. Yet it's always going to be quite different. And the more you put yourself out there and set intentions to go see new places, the more it can possibly happen. And the more growth that comes from that is just not quite measurable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing advice. I love it. Wish someone had told me that when I was first starting out.
Yeah, stay curious.
Yes. I think that applies across anything, like even just in life, just stay curious. It makes life more fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Kylie. I really appreciate you doing this and doing it twice. So I'm so happy. And I feel like I learned even more about you this time around. So that's for me, I love it. I just love it. And I love having these conversations and connecting. And your journey has just been so unbelievably cool. And I love your approach to all of it. And I think that this is going to be full of great advice and amazing stories. And so I'm really grateful for your time and your sharing.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Happy traveling.
Thank you. I want everybody to know where they can find you and the Element Collective and all that good stuff, because I just feel like you're just somebody to connect to, and I love it. So
thank you. You can find me on my new business website, elementcollective.com, and that's ELLE, so with 2 L's. We're launching a mobile app for teenage girls and gender expansive youth, sharing many tools and resources ranging from professional development, mindfulness, hormone health, a really intentional space to be, if you're going to be on your phone anyways, and creating community there. You can also find me on Instagram, my name, Kylie Roswell. It's Kylie_Roswell for my Instagram. And I've documented so much of my travels there, which is really neat to have one place there. So you can find me there, send me a message, and yeah, thanks so much for having me here.
Yeah, thank you. And I look forward to connecting again someday soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Kate.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you guys so much for joining us for that interesting conversation. And what did I tell you? Kylie is amazing, and her business partner are just creating such cool things for this world. And I love her experiences and her sharing her story, and I love that her dog makes an appearance and all those good things. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Check her out, check Mary out, check out their business, and I'm really grateful that she took the time, and I really love what they're doing in this world, and like serious change makers. All the women so far on this podcast have been serious change makers, and it just makes my heart so happy. So yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you next week. Check us out in the meantime at 10 Hours From Home on Instagram and 10hoursfromhome.com. And then if you want to check out more about my business and all the things going on there, check us out at atelierkate.com and the Atelier Kate. And yeah, if you want to talk to us, if you have a story to share about your experiences abroad, send me an email at hello@atelierkate.com. And again, thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.